All right, what's going on, guys? So today we're gonna be doing a little ridge reaming on this 3VZE block that I got out here. So before we can hone those cylinders, we need to make sure we get the ridge out of it. And then when you go to install the new pistons, you could damage the piston rings if you don't get rid of the ridge that's inside of this engine. So today we're gonna go ahead, ream out that ridge, and I'm gonna show you guys how to do it. I picked up this ridge reamer off of NAPA. I think it was about $50 or so with the discount. It's going to have a couple bolts on here for adjusting the cutting blade depth. You have the adjustment bolt on top, which is going to adjust these right here in order to get this to lock into the cylinder. And then right here is your cutting blade. And then when you go to turn this bolt right here, this is what brings the cutting blade up to the top of the cylinder and gets rid of all that carbon that's built up on the ridge. So if you guys want one of these, I'll go ahead and show you what I picked up. It's this one right here from NAPA. Try and get this adjusted so you guys can see this a little bit better. So I'm not sure how well that's going to show up, but if you're looking to get a ridge reamer, this is the one that I picked up. There's a couple other ones. Some of them are more expensive than others, but they all look pretty much the same, so I figured this will work just fine. This one was probably about $40 cheaper than the other one that I had found. So yeah, let me get this camera set up on the engine and then show you what we got to do. All right, so we got the engine right here. I don't know how well you guys can see it from that camera angle, but what we need to do is along the top part of this cylinder wall, about maybe 1/4 of an inch thick, you're going to have a little ridge. And then what you'll notice is when you run your fingers on the cylinder wall up towards the top, you'll actually kind of catch that ridge. And this one's not horrible, but it definitely needs to be cleaned up a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and do all 6 of these. When you go to set this up, you want to loosen up these 2 screws on the top, and you want to just slide this plate towards the back. That way it's centered on here and it doesn't hit the wall as you go to put the ridge tool in here. So next thing you're going to have to do is you're going to want this to be set down about 3/4 of an inch, or about 3/4 of the threads are exposed from this top washer right here. Once you have all that set up, then the next thing you're going to need to do is adjust this top screw right here, and that's going to adjust these flanges, and it's going to allow them to come out or go in depending on the size of the cylinder that you're working with. So this one's already pretty close to what we're dealing with here, so it should just fit. And what you want to do is you want to get it close. It doesn't have to be, you know, dead on the money, but you want to be pretty close. And then you're going to slide this down till the cutting blade is below where your ridge is. All right, if you have the cutting blade where it starts on the ridge, it's going to end up causing you to run into the cylinder wall and then cut the cylinder wall instead of actually cutting the ridge like you're supposed to. So what you don't want to do is cut the cylinder wall. You just want to remove that ridge. So in the instructions, it tells you to set it to the number 2 position, which is right here. It's only got 3. Some of them have 4. This one's a little bit different. And then what we're going to need to do is take what I believe is supposed to be a 5/8, I think. Yeah, 5/8. So we're going to use a 5/8 on this top adjustment bolt. And this gets kind of tricky because this is going to try to turn with the bolt. So you kind of have to put your finger in here and then turn the bolt as you go. So what you want to do is make sure that the cutting blade is below that ridge, and then you want to try and get your tool centered in there. So you might have to kind of support it from underneath. And then what you also want to do is you want to make sure that you get this square inside of the cylinder. If you have it angled or cocked on one side, you're not going to get an equal cut, and then what might happen is you might start cutting into the cylinder wall. when you go to tighten this down, it doesn't have to be as tight as you can get it. You just want it to be snugged up against the cylinder wall. And then I'm gonna see if I can show you guys what we're looking like here. So this is what it looks like. And you can see those 3 flanges, and then notice how they're all perfectly flush and in contact with the cylinder wall. That's what you're looking for. And then right here is where that ridge is. So this is what we're going to try and get knocked out of here. And then this is where the cutting blade is. Notice how it's not in contact yet. So now once we have this locked in, we can go ahead and then move this towards the wall like so. Okay, now notice how that's over there touching the cylinder wall. Then you'll go ahead and tighten these down. So let me go ahead and get this set up, and then I'll show you basically what's going to happen next. All right, so now that we got this pretty close, we're going to go ahead and we'll just turn this right here, keep that on number 2, and then we're going to tighten these down. And these don't have to be as tight as you can get them, you just want them snug, just so that it doesn't cause the blade to push back and loosen up on you. But so set it to about there. And then I noticed that this isn't perfectly straight here, so we're going to have to adjust that a little bit. All right. All right, so now that we have this set in place, we're gonna go ahead and use a 7/8, put it on that bolt, and then you're just gonna slowly start turning this. I don't know if you can hear it, but it starts to clean and cut the bore. And you're just going to slowly keep going around until the cutting blade gets all the way up to the top of the cylinder, or outside of it. So you can see as you get to the top of the ridge, it really starts to cut all that carbon out of there. All right, so now just go ahead and turn this over to the number 1 position. That brings that back in, and then you can back this back down so it makes it easier to start on the next cylinder. All right, so now what you can see is all that carbon that was in there has now been taken off. So what it did is it removed all of this, and now you're left with something that's clean. So All right, so there you have it. Got the ridges cleaned up. Might have to come back in for this one and re-clean that one up just a little bit more. But we knocked down all that carbon that was on here, so all we gotta do is the other side now.